to Frederick at its best. Frederick at its best is a time where we acknowledge people, we issue proclamations, we try to increase awareness about something that's positive that's happening in our community, and share information that we want the general public to know. So I'm Frederick County Executive Jan Gardner, and today we're here, and I'm joined by some dedicated members of a group who are interested in sharing information about what's known as complex regional pain syndrome, or CRPS. And they're here to raise awareness in our community about this disease. And complex regional pain syndrome is something I had not heard about before. And you may only know about it if someone in your family or a friend has experienced this, but it is a very, very painful disease that is very difficult to treat. So what is CRPS? Complex regional pain syndrome, formerly known as RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy, is a progressive disease of the autonomic nervous system, and more specifically, the sympathetic nervous system. It often starts after an injury, and the pain is characterized as constant, extremely intense, and out of proportion to the original injury. CRPS pain is ranked as the most painful form of chronic pain that exists today. So consider this. If you had it in your hand, imagine that your hand was doused in gasoline and it was on fire. And it stayed that way 24 hours a day, day after day, 7 days a week, and you knew it was not likely to come to an end anytime soon. That's what it's like to have complex regional pain syndrome. Now imagine if you had it in both your hands, your arms, your legs, your feet. Well, you get the picture. It would be very, very difficult to deal with. So it's estimated that there are approximately 200,000 people, men, women, and children, in the United States alone who have this disease, and about 75% of the people who are affected are women. A majority of the victims develop the disease in their 30s and 40s, but it can happen at any age. So there's 4 major symptoms for a diagnosis of CRPS: chronic burning pain, inflammation, spasms, insomnia, and emotional disturbance. According to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke and the National Institute of Health, it has been estimated that CRPS may present itself in 2 to 5% of individuals with peripheral nerve injury. So how can we help? Well, certainly our hearts go out to all the people who are suffering from this chronic pain, because really it becomes so difficult to just function and move forward with your daily life. But it's also, we're here really to raise awareness, to make people know that this is out there so they can be diagnosed correctly, and to really encourage people to be understanding and supportive of those whom they may meet who are suffering from this. So I want to read a proclamation, and then I'm going to share the microphone with the people who are standing here with me, who can tell you a little bit more about it from a personal level. Whereas complex regional pain syndrome, also known as reflex sympathetic dystrophy, is a nerve disorder that causes chronic pain and can strike at any age, most often affecting one of the arms, feet, hands, or legs. And whereas the symptoms of CRPS are often described as a burning sensation that is out of proportion to the severity of the initial injury and can include swelling and extreme sensitivity to touch. Whereas through treatment can relieve pain symptoms, the prognosis varies from person to person. While CRPS was first identified during the Civil War, it remains a poorly understood condition, and there is no cure. However, the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, the primary federal supporter of research on the brain and nervous system, has scientists studying new approaches to treating CRPS and intervene more aggressively after traumatic injury to lower the development of the disorder. And whereas members of the CRPS community are spreading awareness this month, and whereas on November 2nd, members of the community celebrated the 2nd annual Color the World Orange Day to spread awareness of this poorly understood pain disorder. So now, therefore, as the County Executive of Frederick County, Maryland, I hereby proclaim November 2015 as National CRPS Awareness Month in Frederick County and commend this observance to all of our citizens. So we really want you to learn about this. I know the governor has also issued a proclamation on this disease. And I want to first introduce Samantha to tell you more about it.
Thank you. Well, CRPS is like she said, a progressive neurological autonomic nervous system disease that usually starts after a trauma. Sometimes it can just come on. It is rated the highest known form of pain on the McGill pain scale. Along with the constant burning, stabbing, tight, crushing, ice-cold pain, it also controls all of the things that your body does without thinking about and does naturally on its own. These are things such as body temperature, blood pressure, eye dilation, organ function, GI function, reproductive functions, hair, nail growth, hormones, sweating, glands, and many more. Your body becomes extremely sensitive to noise and light. Your body becomes hypersensitive to touch. Even the slightest brush of your bed sheets can be excruciating. There are a number of different ways to treat symptoms of CRPS, but there's no cure yet. There are also procedures with medications, nerve blocks, drug pumps, spinal cord stimulation, nerve stimulation, ketamine infusions. And ketamine was originally used as a horse tranquilizer, but is now used to restart your nervous system, kind of reboot. Everything to treat these symptoms are pretty radical. Therapies include biofeedback, desensitization, physical therapy, hyperbaric oxygen, graded motor imagery, and most important, psychotherapy. RSD is also known as the suicide disease. I personally have known 2 people since August who were not able to take the pain anymore. The feeling of agonizing pain, depression, and isolation becomes really real, really quick. This is why raising awareness to find a cure, but also so no one ever has to suffer alone. Primary care doctors don't know how to treat it. It's almost treated as taboo in the medical community. The CRPS community is a very tight-knit, and I'm very fortunate to have met these people, the only people that know what I experience on a daily basis. So thank you to Vivian and Robin and Jan for helping our community bring attention to this important issue. I'd also like to thank Governor Hogan for declaring November 2nd statewide CRPS Awareness Day.
Okay. Could you do me a favor? Would you mind sharing your story a little bit about how you came to have this disease?
Yeah. 2 years ago, I did the Avon Walk for Breast Cancer in San Francisco, and around mile 18, my foot was pretty swollen, and it was in a different amount of pain. It was new pain, nothing like I'd ever experienced. 3 days later, my dog actually ran into the same foot, and it went ice cold and numb and just felt on fire, like your veins are filled with molten lava, and it never went away. Within 2 weeks of that injury, it had spread all the way up to my hip. 2 months later, right as I was kind of starting to get used to it, so to speak, I was doing some marathon baking for Christmas, and it spread to my arm. So I've been a warrior for 2 years fighting this disease, and I've gone through chronic pain classes, met some amazing people, and the most important thing is just rallying behind each other and knowing that you're not alone in this fight, because you can just get so depressed and isolated, and just it's really hard to explain. It's like you don't get it unless you get it. So I don't know. This is why raising awareness is just so important.
So you basically live with the pain every day.
Yeah, 24/7, 365.
And cope with it as best you can.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, distractions are huge. I'm always, and support, yeah, absolutely. Okay. A lot of people just don't understand, and they don't know how to handle the changes that you have to make in your life to accommodate this. You have to learn how to kind of dance with the pain instead of fighting the pain. so that your life isn't just in turmoil anymore. So, but people, there's a lot of people that just don't understand how to, why the old you isn't there anymore.
Yeah, I can understand how it can be a life-changing, and because you're in pain all the time, and you have to deal with it all the time, and it changes how you behave every single day.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure some nights you sleep better than other nights, and you don't know, when you're going to feel good or bad. So I'm sure it changes the lives of all the people you live with and who live around you too,
yeah.
and the people who want to support you.
Yeah, there was a point where my daughter was scared to hug me because she didn't want to hurt me.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to adjust to.
That was the rock bottom.
Okay, do you want to pass the microphone and see if anyone else wants to introduce themselves and add anything you want to add?
I'm Dan Turner. I'm Samantha's father, and as a father, it's tough to see a child go through such a thing. You hear a lot about the physical pain and all the complications and the medical part of this. And it's pretty confusing. I spent a lot of time on the computer looking stuff up, and I couldn't really understand a lot of it. It's like, even with the doctor, it's like bringing your car into a tire shop and say, fix my transmission. It's over their heads. It's something new, although it's been around a long time, it just hasn't been discovered. But I think another part of it that's really important is the psychological and emotional part of it. That plays a big role as well on the well-being, and it's tough. When doctors don't understand it, it's tough for family members to understand it as well and wrap your head around it. There's a psychological factor that seems to happen, and there's a lot of other diseases that experience this. When it's something this devastating and this tough and there's no cure, it's hard to deal with it as a family member. And a lot of people kind of go with the hands off because they just don't know how to deal with it. And that's something that I've seen and I've struggled with my own family, and it's tough. Nobody knows how to quite deal with it, and they find themselves alone. And that's why I'd like to thank everybody for giving us the opportunity here today, not just the state of Maryland, but also the other people who are sharing this together and help support, and everybody's not alone, because that's a really big part of it. So thanks again for the opportunity to do this today. Thank you.
Who's with you?
So I'm Joanne Conrad, and Dan and I have been a couple for about 3 years now. So Nikki was in San Francisco and needed a place to come back to, and she came to live with me. And I have to tell you that this disease can change you. It, like she said, she's not the same person that she used to be. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. What I see in her is someone who can get the job done. So she finds a way to make it happen. The state of Maryland has really stepped up and taken care of her. And she's had help here in Frederick County. There's a lady that helps her. Nadine has been her. Nadine has been Nikki's savior. I mean, she got her set down a path where she can take care of herself. For the most part. But when she needs to get something done, when she needs to get a proclamation, she finds a way to get it done, more than I've ever seen in anyone. And that amazes me. So the disease is a bad thing, but it has really brought out strength in her, and I'm proud of her for that.
Thank you, Jan, for having us here this morning. My name is Marilyn Hall. This is my husband, Bill. And I have had this wonderful disease for almost 13 years now. I had failed back surgery, and my daughter-in-law, who's a physical therapist, diagnosed me 9 days after my surgery. She said, "Oh my gosh, Nanny, I think you're getting RSD." And me being an RN, I said, "What is that?" She said, "You don't want to know. We'll just get in touch with a neurologist tomorrow." So we've gone from there. We've been to neurologist and acupuncturist and Kalmari therapy up in Rhode Island and Walter Reed, Bill's retired military. And if it wasn't for my family and friends, I could not do this. So, anyhow, this is Bill.
Thank you. the biggest thing is that this disease is a lonesome disease, and it's in order to have friends, you have to be a friend, and it's hard to be a friend when you're closed in the house. And we do our best. Marilyn does her best, and it's good to find good friends such as these folks from our church, John and Candy Miller, and we've more or less taken this disease under our own wing, and have been patient advocates of the treatment of this disease. We're able to get an experimental drug from Japan that's not approved in the United States, but we got a FDA exception for compassionate use of that drug, and it helped. And we've gone through other therapies and things like this that we dig up on the internet and then pursue them. I'm a veterinary pathologist, and my forte is really experimental research, so it gives me a different perspective of how to deal with this, but we do our best.
That's all we can do.
That's right. I'm Candy Miller, and friends of Marilyn and Bill's for a long time. Knowing the pain is one thing, but watching the devastation for the social life and what it does to Marilyn's family, watching them watch her, just adds insult to injury. It's very difficult.
Thanks, Candy.
I'm John Miller, and they, as Candy said, they've been dear friends of ours for a number of years, and it is hard to watch them as a couple. Marilyn and Bill have been active in St. Peter's and Liberty Town for decades, and in 13, actually probably about maybe 11 years ago, after it got worse and worse for Marilyn, she became unable to, most of the time, to come to Mass. And to see her there is such a treat. But every Mass, every time we see Bill at Mass, which is every Sunday, I ask Bill, or Candy asks Bill, how is Marilyn doing? And obviously it's not good, or she would be at Mass. And tears well up in Bill's eyes. As bad as it is for Marilyn, and it's horrible, I can't begin to imagine, but it is also bad to a lesser degree as a husband or any spouse to watch your loved one deal with constant pain. I think most of these patients, a bad day is 10 almost all the time. A good day when Marilyn's able to make it to Mass is a 4 or 5. I complain when I have some back pain, and it's bad, sometimes, not often, but I can't begin to imagine having a pain scale of 10 almost every day, a good day being a 4. So we'd ask for prayers for this disease, for those patients who experience this, and also prayers for those researchers that eventually, hopefully in the near future, they will find a cure.
Thank you.
I want to thank you all for being here today, and for all of our viewers. This is a disease that people are not familiar with, but you can see that it is chronic. It's life-changing for people, and that they need the support of the community as well as our medical community to try to research and find a cure, or at least better medications, procedures, physical therapy, acupuncture, to help make the pain more tolerable. I think that's a good word, tolerable. And so, what we ask you is to be aware, share the word, share the news about this, and to be supportive of people who you may run into who are suffering from this disease, because they need your support, they need you to be a friend, and they need you to do whatever you would normally do with them to support them as they have a life change because of having this disease. So thank you for joining us. I want to thank all of you. You're very brave to be here and share your stories with the people of Frederick County, and I'm sure that they will do what they can to support you, because we do have a very caring community. So thank you, and with that, we're adjourned.